Hi, good morning, and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. Well, have you thought about your shoes lately? Probably not, unless they're hurting your feet. Otherwise, we sort of take them for granted. But shoes, you think about the market, and there's so many kinds of shoes. And are you a person who wants to be in fashion with shoes? You probably, if so, just keep adding more shoes. It always amazes me or amuses me, I guess, when I watch some of those decorating shows on TV, and the women have to find a closet that's big enough for all their shoes. Do you know anybody like that? Yeah, I do. Shoes can be so many things to so many people. They're not just to protect our feet or help make us comfortable. For many people, they make a statement, whether it's a fashion statement or some other kind of statement. Yep, shoes are pretty important. Well, have we always had shoes? No. Most people until recently around the world went barefoot. But on the other hand, shoes were invented. I'm not sure that's quite the right word, but many thousands of years ago. And the earliest known shoes are sandals dating from about 8,000 to 7,000 BC and found in Oregon in 1938. Amazing. The world's oldest leather shoe, made from a single piece of cowhide laced with a leather cord along seams at the front and back, was found in a cave in Armenia as recently as 2008. And those are believed to date to 3,500 BC. So, of course, natural resources were used for those first shoes, like leather, like bear skin, deer skin, even bark. But the tanned leather, the material most commonly used for making shoes, does not normally last for thousands of years. So the shoes that they were found were probably in use long before this. And the reason they think about, all of the anthropologists and so on, when they study all of this, look at the thickness of the bones of the toes, and that decreased during the period when they started to use shoes. So it is surmised that wearing shoes resulted in less bone growth, resulting in shorter, thinner toes. Isn't it interesting what anthropologists study? The earliest shoes were simple affairs, often called or looked at as foot bags of leather to protect the feet from rocks and debris and cold. And since shoes use more leather than sandals, their use was more common in cold climates. By the Middle Ages, turn shoes had been developed with toggled flaps or drawstrings to tighten the leather around the foot for a better fit. As Europe gained in wealth and power, fancy shoes became status symbols. Toes became long and pointed. Does that sound familiar? But these were often to ridiculous proportions, and artisans created unique footwear for rich patrons, and new styles developed. Now that was in Europe in the mid-century, but doesn't that sound like history repeating itself? But eventually, the modern shoe with a sewn-on sole was devised. Since the 17th century, most leather shoes have used a sewn-on sole, and this remains the standard for finer quality dress shoes today. Until 1800, shoes were made without differentiation for the left or right foot, and such shoes are now referred to as straights. Now, and related to that, did you know that ballet shoes have no right or left feet? When they are purchased, the person uses them interchangeably until the dancer works them in and decides which goes better on which foot. And these ballet shoes should be called slippers because they're derived from the light silk slippers worn by fashionable ladies to evening dances in the last century. And think about walking through the snow and the mud in those little bitty slippers. Not much protection. So, as mentioned here, when people became rich, then they could have these shoes that were really not very usable. The men had high heels, and the ladies basically had the slippers. But this showed that the person was rich or had power, or didn't have to work much because they couldn't get around all that well in the shoes. So we had fashionable shoes, and then we had work shoes. The choice of shoes that I mentioned earlier just goes on and on. We now have to have shoes, it seems, for all special kinds of athletics: running shoes, track shoes, those with cleats, golf shoes, bowling shoes, climbing shoes, walking, and then there are the ones that are attached to skates: ice skates, roller skates, inline skates, and there are ski boots and skate shoes and cycling shoes and snowshoes and wrestling shoes. Special shoes for every particular kind of sport. And then when you turn to dancing, oh yes, probably for most of us, if we want to go dancing, we're going to pick out a pair of shoes that are comfortable. But in terms of choices for various kinds of dance, there are pointe shoes, the ones for ballet. Jazz shoes, they have typically have two-part rubberized sole to provide both flexibility and traction, and a low heel. There are tango shoes, ballroom shoes, dance sneakers, foot thongs, tap shoes, and many more to choose from. And if you've looked at the women's styles lately, you'll find that two what I would call extremes: very high heels. We used to think 3 inches was high. Now it's 4 and 5 inches. And also those that are, to me, look very heavy. You can kind of tell I'm not into these new shoes. They're kind of like gladiator shoes, go up the ankles. There's a lot to the shoes. So shoes are making a bigger fashion statement than they even used to in the past. Well, no matter which shoe you choose for which chore, hopefully you are looking at some comfort for at least part of the day, because your feet are kind of the base of everything else, and if your feet hurt, you're probably going to be a little crabby even if you don't realize it. So take care of those feet and think about what kind of shoes you really need. And here's what I would say is maybe an unimportant thought, but a thought. Women may scour the world for the shoes of their heart's desire, but it's men who swoon at their feet.